Last week, Black Ops 4 was shown off to the world, not only at E3, but in a way that not many people were too fond of, and that's rightfully so. We ended up seeing last week the introduction or official reveal of how the season pass of content will work within Black Ops 4 this year in particular, that being in the way of the new Black Ops Pass. Now, for a slight recap for those of you guys, that's 12 multiplayer maps, 4 Blackout characters, 4 new Zombies maps, and access to classify the 5 remake, reimagination, remaster, whatever it may be at launch. That's the only thing you actually get out of that at launch. And a lot of people are upset about this, and rightfully so. We're going to talk about why here in this video, and honestly my own thoughts on this, what we should do in terms of going forward with this. But before we do that, my humble apologies, because I know a lot of people have been tweeting me, commenting on the videos and all that kind of stuff about make a video talking about this, make a video giving your thoughts and feedback. Maybe we can use your voice for positive change, whatever it may be. And that's one thing that I am humbled by that, but I do apologize this has taken a little bit longer. The reasoning for that was because I was actually at E3. I was on the show floor, I was on a plane, I was getting reacclimated to coming back home and getting back in front of my setup and having everything back to where it was before I left. So in that regard, I do apologize for any silence on the topic that may be misinterpreted as maybe support for this, but we're going to talk about here at this today. And that's one thing that also I need to mention is that yes, because I was at E3 supporting Black Ops 4, Activision did bring me out there. I still have a voice of my own, I can use that, and I'm going to criticize what we see in the Black Ops Pass with this one. So if you guys have been around the channel long enough, you guys know what I'm about. Don't think for a second that I'm ever going to stop giving my honest feedback on everything just because of these. I promise you that I will not, and hopefully that shows true with this today. So let's talk a little bit about this. Initially, the differences between the Black Ops Pass and the Season Pass come down to timing and content. Firstly, timing is something in which we'll have 12 multiplayer maps. That's really the biggest stuff here with this one, in the sense that when we take a look at the big shift in timing, 12 maps, 12 months, maybe one a month, but it's not confirmed yet. As for the contents, it's a little bit different because previously, if you were to compare this directly to the Black Ops 3 Season Pass, we had 4 multiplayer maps and 1 Zombies map every single map pack for a total of 16 and 4. Now granted, while the numbers do end up adding back up to 16 and 4 in a slight sense that if you were to take, say, 12 multiplayer maps, 4 Blackout characters, and 4 Zombies maps, it adds up to 16. It is kind of more comparable to that of the World War II model, but in my mind, not done near as well. Because you have 12 multiplayer maps like you have with World War II, but you also don't have something as hardcore in development as a war map to throw in the mix of that. So you have 4 Blackout characters, which to our knowledge is only cosmetics. So you are still essentially getting a little bit less. And if I'm not mistaken, you're getting that less for right around the same price point, if not exactly the same price point of that of a regular season pass. But also what came out today was the fact that we end up hearing a little bit more about what this will entail. There's a little bit talking about how Activision plans to release more free content for Black Ops 4 than any other game in Call of Duty history, which to my guess is going to be very similar to how World War II handled a lot of stuff in the sense of, say, events, a lot of those seasonal things, a lot of different weapon drops and those sort of things that have come along with it. But also I think we're going to see a lot of stuff like Shipment 1944 and Groston House, where we end up getting free maps in a sense for everybody. We also end up seeing that there's going to be more free specialists coming post-launch to the game. There's going to be more in-game community events, and they're also going to end up having during those events the maps from the Black Ops Pass DLC being available at certain times during those. So it's kind of like a, hey, check this out type of thing while you're in it. So in that sense, it does offer a little bit more than what we knew of yesterday, but it's still not exactly what a lot of people are hoping for. And here's where I think some of the problems start to arise. This, the more you look at it, starts to become more anti-consumerism, where you price everything, and I mean everything, out, so you have to buy each individual portion of the game, in which the community and industry is very much so shifting away from that. You have the base game of $60, you have the Season Pass or Black Ops Pass of $40 to $50, then you have supply drops or add-ons, and that's anywhere on the map for that one. You can't really tell exactly where that's going to go because it's dependent on the player. But that said, when you take a look at all that kind of stuff, year over year, you're just shelling out money left, right, and center. The franchise, if I'm totally honest with you, Call of Duty has already peaked, and instead of bringing in a new resurgence of players, we've kind of just been catering to a large majority of players that have still been here from the beginning. And sure, mainstream attention is there, but one other thing is the shift in the industry. Activision and Call of Duty should be focusing big time on how to bring more players in, not trying to nickel and dime every individual piece of that pie to leave players with less and less money. And so here's where I might differ from other people. I know a lot of people have been commenting a lot about how much they hate the idea of the Black Ops Pass and many other different things, but I personally don't expect free content. I know that's something that off the bat, it might not sound all that great, but when you have a development studio offering additional add-on content for that to support an entire year of that, if you were to be able to buy each individual map, because it does take work to do that kind of stuff, that I guess is okay. That first initial rumor that DLC was going to be free and started this whole whirlwind about how DLC must be free, I never really believed that for a second, if I'm totally honest with you. There's no multiple sources to verify that. There wasn't anything to corroborate the story, nothing like that. So while that may be a determining factor for some people, that's totally cool. Again, everybody's entitled to their own view on this, and I have absolutely nothing against that if you want DLC to be free, because honestly, I'd love for it to be, I just don't expect it. However, where this comes down to now is that my issue is that I want the franchise to thrive, and it seems like with each passing year, there's one, two, or more things that seemingly make absolutely no sense in the way of trying to keep up with the times. It seems as if sometimes every single year, there's always that one thing that you're like, well, how did anyone greenlight that? How did that make any sense to anybody when pitching that idea? So, Call of Duty was an industry leader without a doubt for nearly a decade. Modern Warfare to maybe say Black Ops 2, the game was undoubtedly the king in the video game industry. However, market shifts, generations grow, and more games come into the picture, and in order to maintain your spot at the top, games and franchises need to adapt. So while COD may statistically still have some of the best releases of the year, that's simply based off the power of the name. If you look at the annual releases, it's been a slow downward trend. And sure, from a business perspective, it comes back to the whole debacle of milking players, and that's where they make their money back in its post-launch content and micro DLC. But there needs to be something that brings the players back, that puts the game back on the forefront for a leading reason once again, instead of just really relying on the name Call of Duty. And that's something that if you take a look at it, Fortnite in particular has blown up due to its uniqueness in the genre that was already budding. You don't see any other battle royale games that play with a harvesting and building mechanic, that play around with color theory that attracts players and gets their attention and wants them to see it, that plays with free-to-play base games that's literally on every single platform now, and has a micro DLC model that is completely revolutionary, that puts what players want to see right in front of them. It doesn't lock it behind any RNG paywall, and it gives them the option to pay outright, probably albeit a little bit more expensive than it rather should be, but because it's there, they're guaranteed to get it, players are going to be able to buy it. They will buy it in that sense, and so therefore it's, again, leading the industry in a lot of different places because of all those factors. So when COD is coming back to say Blackout, I don't think it's too late for that to be a hit and what could potentially spike numbers up again, but the anti-consumerism moves are. Additionally, competition like Battlefield 5 and The Division 2, those are all now shifting to a free model, which, when we have the strongest name in studio behind this year's title, Treyarch and Black Ops, now would be the best time possible to make that jump to free content. I mean, if everybody always says in Treyarch we trust, Black Ops is literally the best-selling portion of the Call of Duty franchise, where's that faith and where's that trust to be able to make that jump and be able to keep up with those times on the 1 year that you can almost guarantee, aside from this whole thing happening, would be incredibly hard to falter in terms of sales numbers. You're almost guaranteed that, so why jeopardize it by not taking something that would please fans? That's where my disconnect is. So my big problem comes down to that in the anti-consumerism, but two other things at the double dipping, and then one that really made me upset was that of the Back in Black multiplayer pack for Black Ops 3 on PS4 that barely, one, has any players, and two, that isn't available for Xbox One or PC, and three, that requires you to digitally pre-order the game on PS4, which, by the way, doesn't offer any sort of refund. That's just blatantly dangerous. That's something that, again, just ties right back into that anti-consumerism thing and is one of those ideas that are just like, again, how did this ever come to be past the, wow, that's crazy, let's get rid of that immediately stage. So that's one thing that, again, and then as for the double dipping, that's in a sense where the players will pay for the game, and okay, that's cool, but then pay nearly the price of the game again for the post-launch content. And again, I'm kind of okay with that because I'm a firm believer if somebody does work, they should be compensated for it. So in that sense, yes, pay your developers and your designers for it. But with this year's pass, we get 12 maps, 4 Blackout characters, which would be comparable to World War II's model if Blackout wasn't cosmetic only and it was anywhere near as intensive as a war map. So that whole thing, plus the supply drop debacle, where you gotta pay for the post-launch content, plus put everything behind paywalls of the RNG systems, in which you're not guaranteed anything, but you're guaranteed a chance of something. So in my mind, one or the other, and I guarantee if you took out one and maybe even just kept the one, players would be a lot cooler with the entire situation. Even Overwatch, another Activision Blizzard game, does that. Overwatch has free content after launch, and the only other loot is loot boxes, which still aren't the greatest, but it's not gouging the game at that point. You're not charging for every individual piece that you touch, and so in that sense, I think it's still even way better than that of what the situation is in Call of Duty. So how do we fix it? That's my big thing then talking about this. How do you actually do this? Well, number one, something that I'm sure a lot of people would definitely be on board for is to get rid of the entire pass or get rid of the multiplayer portions of that, make the multiplayer maps free for everybody, and then have, say, the zombie stuff still bundled together as a normal content drop for, I don't know, a quarter of the price or so, and then that's where you end up staying with that so that you can make up on some of the ground for that industry-leading formula for what you can do with post-launch content. You can add more stuff into the Black Ops Pass to make it well worth it. I don't know if that's something that a lot of people would get on board for, but there is a little disclaimer as for the Black Ops Pass whenever that was announced that said that it was not all of the content and it was subject to change, so therefore maybe we could end up once again seeing stuff removed or a lot of stuff added on to try and add a little bit of value to it, but I don't know if that'll happen. One thing that I think really needs to happen if there is something in the sense of a season pass continued and this whole thing doesn't really resolve itself is you gotta add the ability to get all the DLC weapons instantly. Don't lock those behind the paywall if you're gonna be essentially double dipping if that's not implemented into the Black Ops Pass. Remove one or the other, get rid of a Black Ops Pass or the loot drops, and that's something that again it kind of balances out so you negate that double dipping. There's a lot of things that we can end up doing here, but I just think that the entire system right now is archaic, and that's why a lot of people are getting upset about it, because it is something that is outdated. It is something the competition is giving a better gaming experience for a lot of other people because they don't have to price gouge them, because they don't have to take every nickel and dime the player has just to try and keep up with the date of all the new content coming out post-launch. So at the end of the day, it honestly comes down to just the industry continuing to move forward and to progress on through how these things are handled. And it seems like Activision and Call of Duty just don't want to adapt to that, and that's the unfortunate part. That's the part where I think that everybody is upset about, and maybe I'm completely misinterpreting the situation. Maybe that's possible, but from what I see, that's my biggest issues with it, is just the inability to adapt and the inability to end up actually taking a look and saying, hey, this would be better long-term, and it would suit our players a lot better than milking the cash cow right now and potentially damaging the relationships further down the line. So I don't know if we'll see something happen. I sure hope so. That really comes down to, once again, our voices here, because I do think that it is good that we are voicing our opinion here on this, and the support is definitely growing for a change in the industry and how this is handled in terms of post-launch content. So that's where I stand, I think, here at this one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Honestly, I think the biggest key to this and trying to make any sort of change positively is keeping it civil. So that said, let's do our best with that, but I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Do you think that it is as integral as I've mentioned here in terms of keeping Call of Duty alive in a sense to go this route with content? Do you think the Black Ops Pass is something that is awful, alright, or you're completely okay with it? Whatever it may be, feel free to let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. But hopefully, guys, enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things like this. If there's any updates regarding this situation, of course we'll let you know here on the channel. But hopefully guys enjoyed. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. If you guys want to follow me over on Instagram as well, trying to get more active over there, so that link is also in the description. But all that said and out of the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Mine is an espresso. Let's hope for some change. Take care and peace.